What if I told you that just 1% improvement every day could completely change your life? Think about it. Just 1%. It sounds small, right? But here's the mind-blowing part. By the end of a year, those tiny daily improvements compound to make you 37 times better than when you started. That's the power of consistency. Whether it's your health, career, relationships, or even learning a new skill, small daily actions lead to massive, life-changing results. In this video, I'm going to show you why this idea is so powerful and how you can start applying it today to transform your life. It's simpler than you think, and trust me, it works. Ready to unlock the secret to becoming your best self? Let's dive in. Let's break this down. Imagine improving yourself by just 1% every day. At first, it seems almost insignificant, just a tiny change. But here's where the magic happens. Growth compounds. If you multiply 1.01% improvement by itself every single day for 365 days, by the end of the year, the result isn't 3% or 10% better. It's 3.01% better, 37 times better. That's exponential growth in action. But here's the flip side. If you decline by 1% each day, multiplying 0.99 by itself 365 times, you're not left with much at all. Almost zero. These numbers aren't just math, they're a powerful reminder of how tiny, consistent changes, whether positive or negative, shape who we become. Now think about how this applies to real life. Imagine learning one new word in a language every day. By the end of the year, you'll have over 350 words in your vocabulary, a solid foundation for conversation. Or consider your fitness journey. Doing one extra push-up daily may not feel like much at first, but after a year, that's hundreds of push-ups more than if you had done nothing at all. Small actions build over time. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Here's where the psychological side comes into play. Many of us get trapped in a mindset that focuses on instant results. We think we need to make massive changes overnight to succeed, whether it's losing weight, building a business, or mastering a skill. But that mindset often leads to burnout or disappointment. The reality is, success is not a one-time event or a grand leap forward. It's the accumulation of showing up day after day, no matter how small the effort feels. Think about a dripping faucet. At first, a single drop doesn't seem like much, but if that faucet drips consistently over time, it can fill a bucket. The same principle applies to your growth. Those daily 1% improvements might feel insignificant in the moment, almost invisible. But when you look back, the progress will be undeniable. The truth is, you won't see results every single day, and that's okay. Growth isn't always obvious in the short term, but consistency will always win over time. The beauty of the 1% principle is that it's accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. You don't need to make a giant leap today. Just focus on taking one small, meaningful step forward. The key is showing up, staying consistent, and trusting the process, even when the results feel slow. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So, what would happen if you committed to growing just 1% every day? Imagine where you could be a year from now. Not just in your career or fitness, but in your mindset, relationships, and even your confidence. The power of compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to your personal growth too. Small, consistent improvements lead to extraordinary outcomes. Now that you understand how powerful 1% growth can be, let's talk about why these small wins matter and how you can start applying this principle in your life today. Let's start with a story. Imagine an athlete training for a marathon. They don't wake up one day and suddenly run 26.2 miles. Instead, they build up gradually, starting with a mile or two, then increasing their distance week by week. At first, those early runs might feel painfully slow or unremarkable, but with each session, their stamina improves. Their muscles grow stronger, their lungs adapt, and they begin to feel more capable. By the time race day comes, they're not just running a marathon, they're crushing it. The key to their success wasn't a single extraordinary effort, it was the daily, steady steps forward. The same is true for a writer working on a book. They don't sit down and churn out 300 pages in one sitting. They write a paragraph, then a page, then a chapter, day by day, until the story unfolds. This is the beauty of small wins. They seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they build into something remarkable. Think about building a wall. If you try to build it all at once, you'll likely fail or get overwhelmed. But if you focus on laying down one brick at a time, as perfectly as you can, eventually, you'll have a solid, unshakable wall. Each 1% improvement is like that brick. It may not look like much by itself, but when stacked consistently, it becomes the foundation of something incredible. This idea is called the compound effect, and it's one of the most powerful forces in the world. Each small improvement builds on the one before it, creating a ripple effect that amplifies your results over time. Think about a savings account. If you put a little money in every month, the interest compounds, and before you know it, your balance has grown far beyond what you initially deposited. The same principle applies to your personal growth, skills, and habits. Small wins today set the stage for even bigger wins tomorrow. Here's why this matters. So often, we measure success by big milestones: getting the promotion, losing 20 pounds, writing the book. But those milestones can feel daunting and far away, which can lead to frustration and giving up. That's why it's so important to redefine success. Success isn't a giant leap forward. It's the accumulation of all the small, invisible steps you take along the way. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's doing the tiny, unglamorous work that no one else sees. Those small wins are what make the big wins possible. Take a moment to think about your own goals. Maybe you've been waiting for the perfect moment to start, a new year, a Monday, or when you finally feel ready. But here's the thing, the perfect moment doesn't exist. Progress doesn't come from waiting for some big breakthrough. It comes from doing something small today and repeating it tomorrow. And those small wins aren't just practical, they're deeply motivating. Every time you achieve a small goal, no matter how tiny, you get a hit of dopamine, a chemical in your brain that makes you feel good. That feeling encourages you to keep going, to push a little harder, to show up again the next day. Over time, those small wins build momentum, and before you know it, you're making progress faster than you ever thought possible. So, I want you to ask yourself, what if success isn't about how far you still have to go, but about how far you've already come? What if every small step forward is a victory worth celebrating? Because it is. The real magic of 1% growth isn't just in the results, it's in the process. It's in proving to yourself, day after day, that you are capable of showing up and making progress, no matter how small. You don't have to make giant leaps to succeed. Focus on the small wins, stack them daily, and let the compound effect work its magic. Next, let's talk about how you can start applying this principle in your life today. Now that we've explored why small wins and daily growth matter, let's dive into the practical side. How do you actually start growing 1% every day? The good news is it doesn't require anything extraordinary, just a few simple, intentional actions that you can begin implementing today. Let's break it down into 4 key steps. The first step is to start small, really small. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to overhaul their entire life overnight. They'll say, I'm going to work out for an hour every day, or I'll write 1,000 words every morning. While that motivation is great, it often leads to burnout because it's unsustainable. Instead, pick one habit or skill you want to improve and set a realistic, bite-sized daily goal. For example, if you want to get healthier, start with just 10 minutes of exercise each day. It doesn't matter what you do, walk, stretch, do a few push-ups, just start moving. Want to learn something new? Commit to reading for 10 minutes a day or learning one new word in a foreign language. These small actions might feel insignificant, but remember, the goal isn't to make massive progress in a single day. It's to build a foundation for consistent growth. Here's why starting small works. It lowers the barrier to entry. If your goal is easy to accomplish, you're far more likely to stick with it. And once you get started, you'll often find that momentum carries you forward. That 10 minutes of exercise might turn into 20. Reading one page might turn into a chapter. The important thing is to focus on showing up no matter how small the effort seems. The second step is to track your progress. This is a game changer because it turns your abstract goals into something tangible and measurable. When you track your daily efforts, whether it's in a journal, an app, or even on a physical calendar, you're creating a visual reminder of your commitment. Let's say you want to get better at writing. Each day you could write down how many words you wrote or how much time you spent on it. Or if your goal is fitness, track how many steps you walked or how many minutes you exercised. As those small efforts add up, you'll start to see your progress laid out before you, and that can be incredibly motivating. Tracking also helps you stay accountable. There will be days when you're tempted to skip or when progress feels slow. Having a record of what you've accomplished reminds you of how far you've come and gives you the push you need to keep going. Even better, it turns your growth into a habit. Over time, it won't just be something you do, it will become part of who you are. This step is the most important, but it's also the hardest: staying consistent. Consistency is the secret sauce of 1% growth. But let's be honest, there will be days when you don't feel like showing up. Maybe you're tired, busy, or just not in the mood. That's where the magic of simplicity comes in. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, talks about something called the 2-minute rule. The idea is to make your habit so simple that it takes only 2 minutes to do. For example, if your goal is to start reading more, commit to reading just 1 page a day. If your goal is to exercise, start by putting on your workout clothes and doing 1 push-up. The key is to focus on the act of showing up, even in the smallest way. Once you're in motion, you'll often find it easier to keep going. Consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Instead, focus on getting back on track the next day. Think of it like brushing your teeth. If you forget to brush one night, you don't give up on brushing altogether. You just pick it up again the next day. That same principle applies to your habits and goals. Finally, don't forget to celebrate your small wins. Recognizing your progress is a powerful motivator, and it helps you stay focused on the journey rather than the destination. Even if it feels silly, take a moment to acknowledge your effort. I worked out 3 times this week, or I've read 50 pages of this book so far. Celebrating doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be as simple as giving yourself a mental high five, checking off a box on your habit tracker, or treating yourself to something small when you hit a milestone. The important thing is to make your progress feel rewarding. Here's why this matters. When you celebrate small wins, you reinforce the behavior that got you there. Your brain gets a dopamine boost, which makes you want to keep going. Over time, this creates a positive feedback loop where effort leads to progress, progress leads to reward, and reward motivates more effort. Remember, the journey to success isn't about doing something huge once in a while. It's about doing the little things consistently. Every small win is proof that you're moving in the right direction, and that's worth celebrating. Now that you know the practical steps to grow 1% every day, you're probably wondering, how do you stay motivated when the progress feels slow? Let's talk about how to overcome challenges and keep moving forward, even on the tough days. Let's be honest, there will be days when you feel like nothing is happening. You'll show up, put in the effort, and see nothing. No visible results, no fireworks, no immediate payoff, and that's perfectly normal. Growth, especially the kind that compounds over time, often works in silence. Imagine planting a seed. You water it every day, but for weeks there's no visible sign of life. It's easy to get discouraged and think, what's the point? But what you don't see is that beneath the surface, the seed is growing roots, laying the foundation for something incredible. Eventually, that small sprout breaks through the soil, and what seemed invisible becomes undeniable. The same principle applies to your personal growth. There will be times when progress feels slow, like you're spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere. It's during these moments that many people give up. But here's the truth. The people who succeed are the ones who keep going even when the results aren't immediate. Success doesn't happen in a straight line. It's a messy process filled with ups and downs, plateaus, and breakthroughs. The key is to trust the process and keep showing up, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Of course, life happens. You'll have days where you miss your habit or fall short of your goal. Maybe you're too tired to exercise, too busy to read, or you simply forget. And that's okay. What matters isn't that you missed a day, it's how you respond to it. Too often, people fall into the trap of all or nothing thinking. They miss one day and think, well, I've ruined it now, so I might as well give up altogether. But the truth is, missing one day doesn't erase all the progress you've made. Think of it like this. If you're driving a car and take a wrong turn, you don't abandon the entire journey. You adjust, turn around, and get back on course. The same approach applies to your habits and goals. If you miss a day, don't stress. Don't beat yourself up. Just pick up where you left off and keep moving forward. One misstep won't ruin your progress, but giving up will. Here's a practical tip. When you do miss a day, make it a priority to get back on track the very next day. This keeps you from losing momentum and helps you avoid turning one missed day into two, then three, and so on. Remember, consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about persistence. It's about showing up more often than not. One of the biggest challenges in the 1% growth journey is learning to be patient. In a world that glorifies instant gratification, it can be hard to stay committed to something when the results take time. But true growth, meaningful, lasting growth, doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, steady process that rewards those who are willing to play the long game. Think about the example of compounding interest. At first, the growth is barely noticeable. It feels like nothing is happening. But over time, as the small gains stack on top of one another, the results become exponential. The same is true for your habits and personal development. The results may not show up in a week or even a month, but give it 6 months, a year, or longer, and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. The key is to shift your focus from short-term results to long-term progress. Instead of asking, why haven't I seen results yet? Ask, am I doing the right things consistently? Because when you're consistent, the results will eventually take care of themselves. It's like building a house. Brick by brick, the progress feels slow, but one day you step back and realize you've built something incredible. Patience also allows you to enjoy the process. Instead of obsessing over how far you still have to go, you can focus on the small wins and daily victories that make the journey worthwhile. Every time you show up, you're proving to yourself that you're capable of growth, and that's something to be proud of. So yes, there will be challenges. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when life gets in the way, and when you're tempted to give up. But remember this, growth isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, doing your best, and trusting that the small actions you take today will add up to something extraordinary tomorrow. Be patient with yourself, be forgiving, and most importantly, keep going. You've got the tools, and now you understand the challenges. The question is, are you ready to take that first small step? Let's talk about how you can start creating your own 1% growth plan today. Now let's take a moment to look ahead, beyond the day-to-day grind and small wins. Imagine yourself a year from now. Picture this. After a full year of growing just 1% every day, you look back and barely recognize the person you once were. The habits you struggled to build are now second nature. The goals that once seemed impossible are now part of your reality. And the best part? You didn't get there by making massive leaps or relying on bursts of motivation. You got there through steady, consistent effort, by showing up every single day and focusing on that tiny 1%. This transformation doesn't just happen in one part of your life. It can impact everything. Think about your health. Maybe today you're just trying to move a little more or eat a little better. At first, it feels like nothing is changing, but over time, those small actions add up. The 10-minute walk you take every morning turns into a daily run. The decision to drink water instead of soda becomes a habit you don't even think about. A year from now, you might find yourself stronger, healthier, and more energetic, not because you followed some extreme plan, but because you consistently made small, positive choices. Now let's talk about your career. Imagine committing to learning just one new thing every day, whether it's a professional skill, a new tool, or simply reading for 10 minutes about your industry. It might seem insignificant at first, but over the course of a year, that's 365 new pieces of knowledge or skills you've added to your toolbox. That's the kind of growth that sets you apart, that opens doors to new opportunities, that makes you invaluable in your field. And it's not just about knowledge. It's about the confidence you'll gain from knowing that you've invested in yourself consistently. But growth isn't just about work or health. It's also about your relationships. Think about the impact of making small, consistent efforts to connect with the people in your life. Sending a thoughtful message to a friend, expressing gratitude to a loved one, or making time for a quick check-in call. These are small actions that on their own might not seem like much, but over time, they deepen your connections, strengthen your bonds, and create a ripple effect of positivity in your relationships. A year from now, you might find that your relationships feel richer, more supportive, and more meaningful, all because you made the effort to nurture them, one small step at a time. And then there are your hobbies or skills. Maybe you've always wanted to learn how to play an instrument, speak a new language, or master a craft. At the start, it might feel like you're making no progress. The chords sound off, the grammar feels confusing, or the skill seems out of reach. But if you commit to just a little bit of practice every day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, those small improvements will compound. A year from now, you might be playing your favorite song on the guitar, holding a conversation in that new language, or creating something you once thought was beyond your ability. The power of 1% growth is that it's not limited to one area of your life. It's a mindset that you can apply to anything you care about. Whether it's your physical health, your mental well-being, your career, your relationships, or your personal passions, the principle is the same. Small, consistent actions lead to extraordinary results. The most exciting thing about the 1% growth journey is that it doesn't stop after a year. The growth compounds. Every year, every habit, every effort builds on the one before it, creating a snowball effect of improvement. 5 years from now, you might find yourself living a life you once thought was impossible. Not because you did something dramatic, but because you embraced the power of small, consistent growth. And the beauty of this approach is that it's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about showing up more often than not. It's about focusing on progress rather than perfection. It's about understanding that the small things we do today are seeds we're planting for a better tomorrow. So take a moment to imagine your future self, the version of you who decided to grow just 1% every day, the version who built healthier habits, advanced their career, deepened their relationships, and pursued their passions with consistency and purpose. That version of you isn't just a dream, it's a reality you can create starting right now. The big picture of 1% growth isn't just about achieving goals, it's about becoming the kind of person who strives for growth, who values the journey, and who understands that the little things in life are what truly make the difference. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start and then keep going. So, are you ready to take that first step toward your 1% growth journey? Remember, the future you want is built one small choice at a time. Start today and watch how far you can go. And that's the power of 1% growth. Big results come from small steps. Start today and watch your life transform one day at a time. Now here's my challenge to you. What's one small step you can take today to grow 1%? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and cheer you on. And if this video inspired you, share it with someone who could use a little daily motivation. Let's spread the message of progress and possibility. Finally, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community for more tips on personal growth, mindset, and building the life you've always dreamed of. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.